Okay, give it like a couple seconds and I think it'll work now.
Okay. Let's see.
I hear sounds now.
Let's see. Is it working now?
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay.
Phew, apologies.
I hear stuff. All right. Someone in the YouTube chat is saying they hear stuff. Great. Okay. Well, then I will go back and do it again so that everyone can hear who we are and what's going on. So, welcome. This is the talkback for Strand Theatre Company's production of Miss Bennet, Christmas at Pemberley. Strand Theatre Company is based in Baltimore. It's a brick and mortar theater, and it has been the mission of that theater company to produce plays that center and amplify the voices of women and women identifying playwrights. And just to mention before we dive in, Strand Theater in Baltimore, as well as Rockville, Maryland, which is where I live, and a large part of Maryland is originally Piscataway land. So we want to honor and recognize that. So for the talkback tonight, I'm just going in order of how the cast and crew members appear on my Zoom window. So to start, we have Justin Johnson, who portrayed Mr. Bingley in the play. My name is Sarah Walsh, and I designed the costumes. We have Donna Korn, the music coordinator and composer. We have Betsy Lyons, who portrayed Lydia, and we also have Fado, who portrayed Robin. We have Volcano Jones, who portrayed Mary Bennet, Alex Kafarakis, who portrayed Mr. Darcy, and Emily Gilson, who portrayed Mrs. Elizabeth Darcy. And our fearless leader, our director, Erin Riley, unfortunately was not able to join us tonight. She is under the weather. So we are just going to go forth as I know she would have done in solidarity together. So we have both the YouTube chat box available for your questions, as well as the Zoom. And the Zoom link is, I believe, available on Strand Theatre Company's Facebook page. If that, needs to, if anyone needs to switch from one to the other, we will admit here on Zoom, and you can also participate on YouTube. So I'm just going to dive right in with some questions that sort of, the group put together to talk about putting on a production in a pandemic and what challenges we faced and things we learned and the benefits in some ways also of being able to do it this way. So the first question I have is for Emily, who portrayed Mrs. Darcy. And the question is, what part of this process was the hardest for you to get used to as an actor? And what part was the most fun? So, Emily, take it away.
Thank you. So, obviously, the whole, acting in the square on the internet situation is not ideal in any situation. So, pulling myself back for a theater production while sitting on, maybe it's 8 feet around the space that I was performing in was hard. Because you can't move, and there's nothing to take, and we all had our own little props tables, and it was a whole thing. But my counterpoint to that actually is that I feel like it's a great learning experience for all of us for when this is over, because there will probably be more of this, and it's a great kind of skill that we all have. to act in a box and have to interact with people. So it was hard, but I did not hate it, I will say. And what was the second half of your question?
The second half was just, what did you find to be the most fun aspect of it, or the most positive or surprising?
Yeah, I love how we all met each other for like an hour and a half, kind of piecemeal. The one day we went in to shoot the stuff with masks on, and yet we all really like each other, as if we had, been together for a month every day for a couple of hours. So that was great.
Did anyone else want to jump in on what was hard about the process, or what was the most fun about the process?
I guess I'll jump in. I think for me, the hardest was technology based. Like, I don't have a computer. I just have an iPad. Like, that is my computer. So it only has so much battery life. And even when I plug it in, it'll start to charge, and then it'll start to go down. And I'm like, oh God, I'm at 45%. Oh God, what do I do? Come on, we can make it. We can make it. And I know there were some times where I was like, I have like 17%. Can we get through this scene really quick? Because I can't make it. But we made it, and we made it through. And yeah, the setup was hard too, because I'm like super ghetto. I have like a bin full of junk with a moving box on top of it with my iPad, and I had to like go downstairs, grab an ottoman from downstairs, bring it up here so I could set it up, because I had my green screen. Thankfully, my boss at work is a professional photographer, so he let me borrow his stand so I could hang my green screen up. And there's like an empty room in my house, but it's an empty room, so there's so much echo, so I was like, I can't do it in there. I'm gonna have to do it in my room. So I had to like rearrange what little furniture I had. So it was super ghetto, but we made it through. Which led to my favorite part about it was, again, kind of like what Emily was saying, getting to meet people I've never met who now are like friends of mine. I'm happy to call friends, and getting able to work with Betsy again. We haven't worked with each other in a while, and working with Dana again. I haven't worked with her in a while. And just getting to meet all these new people that are now like in my ever-growing theater family. And so, yeah. It's wonderful.
I agree. I felt like we became, we still sort of had that sense of being a cast and crew, even though it was done, almost entirely remotely. Like we still had that camaraderie. We still had that. We still came together even when we weren't together. The next question was actually one I was preparing to answer, but if anyone else wants to jump in, and this sort of follows on with what Justin was saying, is what do you wish the audience knew going into viewing the show? It's never going to be like real theater. It can't possibly be the same as walking into a theater, sitting down in the dark, watching a production happening with actors, together. But, I think if you give it a chance, if you sort of just let it happen for a few minutes, watch the acting happening, watch the interactions between the actors, and it sort of all melts away. You can sort of have that sense, even if you're in your own living room and it's a mess, like mine is, and it's not a theater, it's not, it's not that same experience, but it is the experience of watching a theatrical production. And in our case, I don't know, theaters have, managed productions like this in many different ways, but where, the actors filmed scenes together, they were not just sitting there reading all of their own lines and then having the scenes patched together. You know, the actors were in fact interacting and acting with each other across Zoom, and then the scenes were placed in order. So there is real, you know, give and take, and there is real, you know, arc to each scene that happens in the same way that it would in a theater production. So I think, you know, nothing is going to be the same about you know, anything really during a pandemic. But productions like this kind of give you that theatrical experience in a different way. You just kind of have to be, you know, open-minded to that sensation at the beginning that this is a little weird, but it gets, you know, it becomes much more familiar as it goes on, I think. So, I mean, for the actors, I'd love to know what you want audiences to know going into this, because, you know, I'm coming at it from the production side, so.
I'll chime in. I guess I would like people to know that, you know, we're all doing the best we can, just like our viewers are right now, and you're not going to get what you might expect to get in a live theater setting. We are not getting what we get in a live theater setting, and we love your support by watching, and also just, you know, don't expect brilliant tech, because people are on budgets.
Although we did have, I mean,
we did have some pretty phenomenal tech, absolutely. But, you know, it's a thing where, like, everybody's lighting situation is different because everybody's environment is different, and we can. So, you know, if people come and see stuff like this again and this becomes a thing, I think people kind of need to expect that it is going to be sort of guerrilla. But that's why it was so cool, also.
yeah, absolutely. Did anybody else or Donna, do you want to talk about a little bit about the process from your standpoint?
Sure, yeah. I mean, certainly echoing what Emily said on tech, I feel like, you know, don't expect like Netflix level tech, right? Like we get so spoiled with you know, our streaming services and everything. The process with creating a choir out of people in their own homes was, you know, that was certainly kind of challenging, because with tech, yeah, like we could not all sing at the same time. We can't have everybody together on a Zoom call and we all try to sing together, and everybody, again, with lagging being different, like everybody's going to be singing at a different place. So the cast was wonderful in recording individual parts separately, so that we could put them, you know, so that I could put them all together and turn them into a chorus from a bunch of individual parts, which was really, really cool. But you know, quite a challenge to figure out that. And I know a number of choirs have done it in varying ways, and it's neat that people can do it. I sure do miss making music in person with people, though, and I think most of us do.
Yeah, thank you for that perspective. So this was another question Emily was preparing to answer. But if anyone else wants to sort of jump in, what do you think about our genre of theater and film, or film, and where do you think theater is headed?
Yeah, I liked this question because I have many thoughts. So, on the one hand, I feel like as a performance medium, I don't know if it's going to stay post-pandemic, because I think there will be this need to like get back into spaces with people. But from an audition standpoint, just being on my end of the table for this sort of thing, I feel like, and I sort of hope that some of it will stay, because I think it's established some boundaries, I think, for artists that we didn't have before. Now that we've established that you can do so much of this stuff from your house at the beginning, I sort of have this image of like money saving, time saving, initial things happening on Zoom, which makes, you know, work-life balance for people easier if they have families. And then so that I hope will stay. That's really cool. I don't know that I want to see it like as a final product forever, because it does suck having to do a show this way, but it would be interesting to see kind of on the internet, you know, like it's such a cool way to put out content, and as the tech gets better and so I think it goes both ways.
I certainly think it's an accessibility thing. I mean, so many things have been revealed to be much more accessible, much more, you know, even playing field in the course of the pandemic. I mean, in the face of many awful and horrible things happening, it's also been sort of a it's given a lot of, I think, organizations and, you know, groups the ability to meet virtually and to engage, you know, in ways that wouldn't necessarily be accessible to people who are not right there. You know?
And to follow up on that, like before I auditioned for this show, like I had done a show with people in the UK, which is incredible that I could like sit in my bedroom in DC and be doing Shakespeare with people in Britain. It was, and like we're all friends now. Like it was amazing. And so that's really cool, because in some ways you get these chances to work with people you would not get to work with in a normal situation because you can't get there.
Exactly. And as you were saying, I mean, being able to audition without having to worry about the transportation to the audition site, or, you know, parking, or whatever it might be, time away from, you know, young children. There's so many different ways, I think, that it can open opportunities. Did anyone else want to? I think this is such a great conversation to have when it comes to theater. So I'm delighted if anyone else wants to weigh in on that. We said it all. We've convinced everybody. So, what do you miss most about live theater in the before times? I think this is the one where we're all going to probably get a little misty-eyed. Betsy, this was a question you were eager to answer.
Yeah, so it's definitely people, like real life people, IRL, in two ways. First, not getting to be in the same room as the rest of the cast and the rest of the crew and the production folks. We did still manage somehow magically with this show to create this sort of camaraderie and joy that you can create in a theater with each other. But from what I hear about Zoom productions, that isn't always the case. That I think is a ode to Erin, our director, and Dana, our assistant director, for the hiring and casting that they did, because this is a magical group of people, and a dog. And the other way that I miss people is the audience. I am actually extremely introverted, the opposite of Lydia, and I feed off of the energy of other people when I am out in public. And so when the audience comes in, it's like suddenly my characters can breathe. I'm an energy succubus with the audience, and so I just miss that audience being there and reacting and gasping and laughing and crying and being there with us, because when you're there, the audience, we are all in it together, and we kind of still are, but it's not quite the same. Although the nice thing about doing this from home is that my dog Fado did get cast in the show, and we wouldn't have been able to do that on a live stage because he is also very introverted and he would get there. So that part was nice.
I think one fun thing is that, you know, several of us had friends who were like live tweeting or Facebooking or, you know, texting or whatever, like during the live streams. So we did sort of have that sense of, you know, audience participation in a way. But it's so different, not to have the sort of, it's almost like you feel, we should have a laugh track, except not. Because it's a funny play. It's so funny. And it's funny whether or not you're familiar with Pride and Prejudice. There are several nods to, diehard fans of Jane Austen, but it's also just a funny play in its own right. So yeah, having that, audience give and take and reactions, and yeah, absolutely. There's an excellent question from over on the YouTube Live. Do you think the arc of these characters in this production fit in the world set by Austen? So at any moment, did it feel like, whoa, canon version wouldn't do this, outside of, obvious departures where Arthur de Burgh was a created character for this play? But, did any of you feel like, oh gosh, my character wouldn't have done this, or, like it didn't feel right? So as a fanfic, almost, I guess you could say.
I can speak to that too. So I know this. So you can't really necessarily tell this from the book unless you try really hard. But from Austen's letters and writing outside of Pride and Prejudice itself, she really thought Lydia very silly and like useless. And that was how her character functioned. And so the fact that Lydia grows in this play, I think she would probably find rather shocking and maybe amusing, I hope, instead of being upset.
It's interesting because the only other Austen fanfic I was aware of before this was Death Comes to Pemberley, which is a fantastic film. And I always think of that scene with Lydia that's very similar to this, where she's like, Wickham and I, we make do, just because she knows. So I feel like Lydia feels sort of very canon in this world. I can't speak to my own character as Lizzie, because Lizzie is, everybody knows Lizzie. Everybody wants to be Lizzie, and she came so naturally to me. I can't speak to what she would or would not do, because she doesn't, she ends the story there. But I love what she does with the other characters, because yeah, they're fun.
I think what's interesting to me is Anne de Burgh, in particular, comes out from under the shadow of Lady Catherine and comes into her own and is just a force to be reckoned with. And, it's not canon, but it is entirely plausible. You can totally see Anne de Burgh going, I'm rid of her, and now I can actually be the person I've wanted to be my whole life, but couldn't be because I was just completely under her control, under her, in this sort of persona that Lady Catherine had imposed on Anne.
The idea of everybody in the play sort of collectively going, oh, thank God she's dead, is actually, I think that's Lauren Gunderson's one kind of like, this is how our audience feels about you, Lady Catherine. And it's so great. We're like, yes, no, this is bad. Yeah.
I'm so delighted at this horrible news. Yeah.
This is so sad that this terrible person that everybody who reads literature hates.
Yeah. Exactly. So a question for Volcano. What do you hope people take away from this production?
Well, I so hope people take away joy and love and possibility and hope. I mean, before I even knew the Strand was doing this show, I had just read the play for fun, and I just was so buoyed up by it, and there's so much joy just in reading it, and so in acting it, I really hope that translates to the audience.
Definitely does. Anyone else want to respond to that one? What do you hope people take away from the production? I'll go for it. I hope that people take away an increased appreciation for Jane Austen's genius in creating these characters, and kind of the ability of the playwrights to kind of take that torch and carry it on. I think that the fact that Jane Austen has inspired, just so much kind of play with the characters that she created is a real testament to, they are such wonderful stories, but she left a lot of things, she didn't leave everything tied up in tidy little bows. There's Mary, there's Kitty, there's other characters that, don't get as satisfying resolution, or, they're not ending the book married, And I found out actually at a talkback that Lauren Gunderson and Margot Melkon, the playwrights, did just a few days ago. There is also The Wickhams, Christmas at Pemberley. And there is also Kitty and Georgiana. There's planning this trilogy of all of these kind of unresolved stories. So that's in the works. The Wickhams' Christmas at Pemberley has already been produced by several theaters, and Georgiana and Kitty's story is coming. So we'll get to see, more of this kind of development of those unresolved stories from these wonderful playwrights. So I think that's really exciting. And then also for Grace, how was this process of creating your character using this platform? And was it different from how you've developed, character in former plays? Was it the same?
It was definitely different. What I noticed that you more than ever had to use imagination, because I'm in my kitchen, and you're not on stage with your castmates, and like Betsy was saying, like feeding off the energy, being in the space with the audience, feeling the energy between you and your cast, you and your audience. So costumes became so important because they were the tangible for you, and getting to just kind of use your energy and translate it through the screen. It was all kind of about dials and frequencies, if that makes sense, because over Zoom acting. So it was an adventure, and it was just marvelous to do it with this group and this script, and it was great.
The thing that I noticed about the costumes in particular is when I got the gents in their full, the waistcoat and the frock coat and the cravat and the... I mean, so Alex, you may not realize this because all of the, actors appear in the same framing in the show, but Alex is quite tall. And he stood about a foot even taller than that when he was fully kitted out as Mr. Darcy. And that was really, this isn't the only period show that I've designed costumes for, but I really appreciate Grace saying that, or Volcano saying that, because it, when you don't have the other trappings of theater around you, when you don't have the set and you don't have the other actors to sort of play off of, and you don't have, all of those typical theater, accoutrement, that was really special to be able to outfit the actors in the correct period clothing, in the right, overall, because even though you're only seeing, from here up, it's still all there. It's very much how you move and how you walk and how you move in the space is still different in those clothes. So there was actually, Erin had planned a question for me about how to design for a show where the actors were only going to be seen in these little boxes. And it was almost, I was so glad that we had the opportunity to do that, those brief little vignettes, the photography, the video, to kind of insert between the scenes so that the whole effect could be seen, because a lot of what's so, I guess the word is distinctive about period clothing is those silhouettes, those long straight up and down skirts, and the men's, lapels and the shoulders and everything is all very evocative of that period. But even just seeing the actors as they were in their, in their frames, it does immediately tell you what period you're in. So, I was very aware of making sure that we had necklines and jewelry, and Erin had some wonderful ideas for hair, and all of you did a fantastic job with the hair too, which I couldn't really control. So, but it really, it did make a difference. It makes a difference in just placing you in that time. So that was really fun, and it was not, it wasn't even really like, oh, I have to think about, what I'm doing with each character. I mean, I had sort of an idea in mind of like what I wanted each character to demonstrate with their clothing, but it really just, it helped in the overall, I think, sort of feel of the show, that they had each of these little touches of correct clothing.
One of the things that I loved, though, about performing from home is that I'm in this gorgeous silk dress, right? And I liked the bonnet even more, actually, that I wore for all of like 10 seconds. That was my favorite. But like underneath I'm also on a moving box. My computer is on a moving box. Very, very, very technical. I'm, when we were filming, I was wearing like Thanksgiving turkey socks on the bottom. And so it's very, very, very anachronistic, and that amused me a lot.
When I was first putting these captions together, my mom had this idea that she was like, you should have them in their perfectly period appropriate, from here to here, and just the wackiest things you can think of from the waist down, tutus, swim fins, whatever you can think of, just for fun. And no, we did not end up doing that.
It was so funny because I was like, I'm going to wear shoes. I have to wear shoes because it would make me act better if I wore shoes. I was barefoot. So I had this gorgeous dress on. I would like do my hair, and then I'm sitting on like an ottoman that I dragged in from the living room. No shoes, and I was so comfortable. It was great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, what I didn't do was I didn't put the women in stays. Although Regency stays are super comfortable, but we didn't go that far into accuracy. We have a couple more questions. So one person in the YouTube chat wants to know, how was it for the actors to be responsible for your own lighting, your own makeup, getting dressed? And I will point out that I gave them dresses that were fairly straightforward to get into. Because I knew not everybody would have help. But, I mean, what did you think about it? I mean, the tech, the lighting and all of that, but just the, not having the green room, not having, that
I appreciate the assumption that we are actors who have ever had other people do our dressing and makeup and hair for us. I have never had anybody else do my hair or makeup for me in any show, so that was not different. But
there's usually someone in the green room who can like do a zipper for you or something.
Yes. And usually, I'm in the dressing room with like headphones on, listening to music with everybody around me doing makeup, which is part of the thing about it that I love. So it was different to not be able to do that. But I mean, otherwise, I typically do my own makeup and my own hair for shows anyway.
So I signed up for TikTok in like April because we're all bored in the house, right? And I make TikToks, and I had been wanting a ring light for months, and doing shows like this gave me an excuse. So I'm grateful for that.
Well, and we had Volcano in a wig for Mary, and you know, it's generally speaking, you know, doing a wig is a whole thing. But you were a pro. You were just like, I got this.
Well, I was in Pride and Prejudice before, and I played Jane Bennet, and I was wigged for that. So that's why.
But that's like, here, take a head and take it home. Like, that was, you know, you don't expect to have to be like in charge. Well, and that's the thing, is also we checked everything out to the actors to take home, which normally a costume designer is like, no, my babies. But they took them all home. They took all the props home because there had to be, you know, that everyone had to have what they needed right there. And, you know, everyone had it all with them for the entire process of recording. And everything came back. So thank you. But yeah, that's not a typical thing to just send the actors home with all of their stuff. So that was a very different aspect of theater making. Well, yes, and so someone in the YouTube chat wants to know, did they have costumes in stock for Alexander's Height? And yes, the costumes that I rented from Oregon Shakespeare Festival, yes, they had exactly the right size frock coat, and that was absolutely delightful. And it was even green. It was like, it's perfect. It was just, I had Alex in, like, you know, all right, you've put a tree in our living room. Sure, I'll wear green for the season, kind of. And they just happened to have the perfect shade of green. It was great. I had a fantastic experience renting the costumes from Oregon Shakespeare Festival. So if anyone needs costumes for a theatrical production during pandemic, after times, whatever, highly recommend them. So I have a question for Donna. What was your inspiration for the wonderful, delightful, beautiful original music that you composed for the show, for the interludes?
Thank you. I thought a lot about country dancing and the sort of dancing that they would do at the balls. If you watch the movies of Pride and Prejudice or Emma or Becoming Jane or any of them, right, they go to a ball and there's dancing and there's music. So I wanted to write something that sounded like it would be that music, but that, you know, kind of started out with it's an overall like cheerful and uplifting sort of show, but then there's some drama in the middle, right? So something in the middle that kind of goes into minor and gets dramatic, and then all resolves in the end. So, you know, thinking about it as sort of the soundtrack of their lives, what they would be listening to. And then, of course, the things that Mary plays are Beethoven, so I did not write those. So I will not claim credit for Beethoven.
Apparently Beethoven and Jane Austen share a birthday.
It was just Beethoven's 250th birthday this week, so
yeah.
Beethoven
and apparently Noel Coward as well.
So
December's just a good month for creatives. Well, we're at about we're at about 45 minutes. I have come to the end of my list of questions, but if there are any other questions, please feel free to put them in the YouTube comment. If any of you had anything to say that I didn't address in the questions, or that you felt you wanted to let audiences know about in general, or anything like that, jump on in.
Thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the Strand. Thank you for supporting us during this crazy time. It was so nice to make a show and share it with you. Just thank you so much. And Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year.
Yeah, and I'll also say thank you, and we're so grateful that we do at least have this way to make our art and bring it to you through the magic of the internet while this is all going on. And we would also love to get back to having you come to us in the theater. So please be safe, stay safe, wear your mask, stay healthy.
And we have as I said, our director, Erin, our assistant director, and Teresa, our tech director, unfortunately, and a number of other actors weren't able to join us. Emma Hooks, who played Anne de Burgh, O'Malley Storman, who played Arthur de Burgh. Let's see. I don't think I'm missing anyone.
Is Julieta here? I didn't see her.
No, Julieta couldn't join us either, our Jane Bingley.
Jane.
But this, as I understand it, this video will remain up on Strand's YouTube channel. So if there are any questions, any follow-up questions, any additional thoughts or thank yous or anything that you'd like to ask the actors or the crew, please feel free to put those in the comment to the video, and someone will make sure that gets answered. On that note, I think we will go ahead and say a final thank you to everyone who participated and asked questions in our YouTube, and thank you to folks who joined the Zoom. And if you haven't seen the show, there is one more chance to see it. You have one more night. Tomorrow night, Sunday night, the 20th at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern. And someone, I believe, will put the link to how to get tickets in the comment to the YouTube video. So you can follow that link, get your ticket, settle in with a nice cup of tea or a gin and tonic or whatever it might be that you wish to enjoy while you watch a delightful show, a lovely seasonal production of Miss Bennet, Christmas at Pemberley with Strand Theater. Thank you so much.